Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. I feel like it has been weeks since I last did a video, and maybe it has been that long. We have been busy. The weather got really warm outside, and we took the opportunity to do one more quick construction project. We have been here in this house now for 3 years, and after having built one more additional small shed, we were able to move some of the stuff that was in the garage out to the shed, and finally, to my husband's delight, my car can be parked in the garage. That was something that was bothering him. So it is now done. It also meant that I was able to organize things just a little bit better, and I can now say all of my fiber has a home, and it's easy to access, and it's not in anybody else's way, and it's not in the threat of being knocked over or damaged with just general running around the place. So it took 3 years, but I can finally say we feel unpacked and fully moved in. So of course there'll be always little things here and there that we'll do, but I do feel like I'm finally set up to craft and create and cook, and all the things that I was doing in my old home, I can now do in this home. Strangely enough, even though we have downsized, and there's a lot of things that are in bins as opposed to out and about, I actually feel better about it all. I feel like I have more access. I feel like I have more freedom. I have definitely got a number of things I still need to sort through. A lot of stuff I want to just get scanned into the computer and saved in a digital format so I can get rid of the originals. But I'm getting closer to having access to where I can take pictures of all of the fibery wonderfulness that I inherited from my grandmothers and my husband's grandmothers. So I'm hoping that maybe by the end of the summer, when it gets a little cooler, I'll be able to give a video showing some of the wonderful things that have inspired me along the way, that continue to inspire me. But this video is all about dyeing. And sometimes when you're doing dye work in the summer, you feel a little bit like you're dyeing. The humidity can get pretty intense. So I'm glad to have this project nearly wrapped up. I will probably be doing a couple more items of clothing later in the week, but I finally got around to a stack of t-shirts and tunics and items that I wanted to dye that I've been putting off for a couple years now. And I'm really thrilled. The big one I want to share is this apron. For those of us that spin, we are very accustomed to getting fiber everywhere, and I like a fun apron. I like lots of color. I like something that is comfortable, and something that has a pocket so my cell phone has a home. And so I have made this apron, and I had to put some color on it. Let's see, whoops, there we go. Now I'm lined up with the camera. And so I put some color on it, and it has a big pocket. It has a big pocket here for my phone, and this will be a wonderful spinning apron. Let's see, not that way, that way. There we go. Let's make myself presentable for the camera as much as possible. So that's one of the things I've been working on. And this apron was really wonderful because, let me put my hair on there. So, okay, no, actually, it's warm. So this apron I was really pleased with because the fabric is a drop cloth, a canvas drop cloth that we used when we were painting the room that I'm in right now. It doesn't matter if there's some paint splatters on it, the dye works around it, but it's just a canvas drop cloth that my husband picked up at the hardware store. Wonderful, wonderful purchase. I started buying them about a year ago when a bunch of the embroidery community started embroidering on them. It's a rustic look, and they were buying this canvas from the hardware store, this drop cloth, and they were putting embroideries on it. And I've done some embroideries. I'll put a picture here of the welcome sign that I have out front. And they're great to make grocery bags with, and it's great. It's just wonderful fabric to use. It comes in big, huge sheets. Some of them have seams in them, and I just rip the seams out. And I have just had a blast. It works as a really great muslin that you can use when you're trying out different patterns like this apron pattern. But it's also heavy duty, and I'm just excited to be able to use it. But I didn't want just a canvas color, so I had to have some color. So this video is about the dyeing process, and I'm not going to show any tutorials. I'm just going to show a stream of pictures of some of the items that I was just dyeing this week. But I will say that my technique of dyeing this fabric, these clothing items, is the same technique that I used when I was dyeing yarn last summer. So if you go and you find the dye videos that I had last summer, you will see that my color application process is the same. Now, with that being said, the process of dyeing cotton versus wool is very different. You use different dyes. And I get my dyes primarily from Pro Chemical and Dye and Dharma Trading Company. I use them both interchangeably. Some colors I've been able to get from Dharma that I couldn't get from Pro Chemical and Dye, and vice versa. My tunics that I have dyed that I'm showing pictures of, I bought those from Dharma Trading. I do love Dharma Trading's white goods. Their dyeable goods are really top-notch. So I do tend to use them. But when you're dyeing cotton versus wool, when you're dyeing plant material versus an animal fiber, I believe it, yeah, there's, drawing a blank on the term, so I'll probably just post, if I can remember, the difference between what they're called. But yes, the brain's drawing a blank. So when you're dyeing cotton, plant material, versus wool, you use a different type of dye, and I'm specifically using a fiber reactive dye. And the process that I used to dye these textiles was the tie-dye instructions that Pro Chemical and Dye have on their website. They have a wonderful PDF that you can download. They have instructions for a lot of the different dyeing. I know that Dharma also has instructions, but I always tend to go back to the Pro Chemical and Dye. For some reason, it's just easier for me to read or follow. That's just my preference. I suspect other people's brains work differently, and they have different set of instructions. But the basic concept is I took the clothing, I went ahead and made up a soak bath using soda ash, and I soaked the garments in the soda ash as the instructions directed for about 10 minutes for each garment. Then I took the garment and I ran it through my spin dryer. Oh my goodness. If you are somebody who likes to work with fiber and you don't have a spin dryer, you should look into getting one. If all you're doing is a small little batch of yarn, a salad spinner works really well. But when you're doing larger items, having a dedicated spin dryer is just really the deal. And so I took the garment out of the soak, ran it through the spin dryer, reserved the liquid to put it back in the bucket so that I'd use it again for the next item. Then I took the garment over to one of my big aluminum pans that I used with my yarn dyeing last year, and I accordioned it, or sometimes I rolled it into a snail type form. But basically I put it in the pan in a way that I thought might be desirable, and then I injected it with color, either using the syringes that I have, or just by pouring the liquid into areas. And I pressed down, and sometimes I took some of the soda ash water or just regular water and added it to make everything blend. I didn't have to use any rubber bands. I think only one shirt did I actually use rubber bands and do a traditional tie-dye kind of method. Otherwise, it's just the fabric weight itself and the injection or pouring on the dye in specific areas tends to keep it so that you have different colors in different areas. So the process was just like my wool. I just was using the different dye, and the cotton dyes, the fiber reactive dyes, need that soda ash. But unlike in a dye bath or something, I was just putting the color where I wanted it. Then I took this color-infused ball of fabric or wad of fabric, and I put it in a bag. I reuse those plastic bags that you get when you buy produce here in the United States, at least. Any plastic bag would work, but I like to recycle. Whenever we do get plastic in the house, like the produce bags, which don't have any holes in them, I will use those in the dye process. So I bagged it up, twisted up the top, didn't even tie it, and put it in a bin. Made sure that my bin of growing dyed fabrics stayed above 70 degrees Fahrenheit, as the instructions called for, and then I let them set. And I tried to let everything set for 24 hours, but I was shy just a little bit on some of them. So because I didn't do 24 hours of setting, some of the darker colors were more faded or muted, which worked fine. The next batch I'm going to try to start really early in the morning, so that the next morning I can start really early in the morning to rinse everything out. Because after the 24 hours of it curing in the bags, I then had to rinse out all the excess dye. And this was the only time I really needed a lot of water. And if I had stuck to one color family, I could have just thrown everything in the washing machine, given it a good rinse, and then do a wash cycle. But because I didn't stay in one color family, I did have to individually rinse out each of the shirts, put it in the spin dryer again, and then take it down and run it through a regular wash. Sometimes what I like to do, and this is a trick I do like to do when I'm working with cotton, is after doing an initial rinse to get the majority of the excess dye out, running it through my spin dryer to get all the water out, I'll toss it in the dryer, heat dry it for about 20 minutes, and then wash a batch of similar color items together. I also, in my wash, will use the Synthropol to help make sure that I don't get any bleeding. So all of this is pretty simple, but there are wonderful instructions, as I say, on the dye powder companies. They have wonderful instructions. I'm basically doing a tie-dye, but instead of actually putting rubber bands or strings, I'm just coiling my fabric up in a pan, applying the color, and then bagging them, twisting the top of the bag somewhat closed, and letting them sit for the 24 hours so that the dyes cure. So this is just how I do it. It's a lot of fun. I like having speckled color. I like having randomness and creating random color patterns. It works really well with my yarn. It works really well with my fabric. It's unique. It's definitely something that I enjoy doing. And so I just wanted to come and share this quick video with you and share with you the pictures of the dyeing that I have done up to this point. Check out my Instagram over the next week. I'm sure I'll have some purples showing up because my husband loves the color purple, and I have finally ordered some white t-shirts just to do a batch of shirts for him. So I think I'll end up with some purples and maybe some reds, because this batch tended to be blues and greens, a lot of teal color, because, well, that just is a color it hadn't worked with a lot for myself. So here we have it. I hope you've enjoyed this short video. I hope it inspires you to get out some dyes, try it out, have some fun. Don't forget the rubber gloves. Don't forget to keep them on. I don't have blue hands today, but yesterday I was looking pretty blue. because the gloves gave way on the last item that I was doing, and I ended up blue. So I hope it inspires you. Hope you have some fun, and I hope to see you again soon with some more unwinding with fiber and fabric. Have a great and wonderful day. Bye-bye.